and everybody talks about this Latin flavor, and that's fine. It's flavor, though. It's not going to be a Latin style. At least I don't think it will be. But nobody really talked about, especially during the halftime of the Costa Rica game, where they had this whole big special and all the possible players that could play for the U.S., and it was just this big, long list of Latin players. What you didn't see was a long list of Bundesliga-based players like Chandler, like Fabian Johnson, like David Williams. They didn't talk about these guys at all, but they're there too. And I guess when are we going to see maybe a little more Johnson and a little more Williams down the road? Because am I wrong, or can both of them also give left back a try?
Well, I know Danny Williams personally. He wants to play for the United States. His question is, and hopefully he gets spurred on this like this. He still doesn't have a U.S. passport, believe it or not. He's eligible for one. It's not like Terrence Boyd. He can get one after he's 18 because his dad was in the service and his dad relocated over there. But he needs to, and his dad, to speed up the process, needs to go with him to the consulate. He's been a little lackadaisical in getting it. He only went to the U.S. for the first time ever over this past summer. So he needs to, and that process, even though he's eligible for a passport and eligible for citizenship, it's going to take some time. So I don't think you're going to see Danny Williams in the U.S. team, until at least next year. If he moves on the process now, it's going to take a little bit of time. Fabian Johnson right away. As soon as the process has begun for him, of his one-time switch to play for the United States, and that process doesn't take as long as it used to. So I'm cautiously optimistic that you'll see him in the October games, and I think you'll see him at left back too. We're going to obviously, with moving Chandler out left, which was kind of like grasping at straws there. I mean, he did a serviceable job. He did a serviceable job, and I thought but I still think it was a terrible decision. If you're going to move one guy over there, it should be Trundolo, who doesn't really move forward as much. He's a good passer, but still, Chandler's explosiveness on the right side is going to get lost. You need him to keep the ball on his right foot. Like he looked very, very good today. In the win over Cologne, and Trundolo was not good this weekend. So I mean, you really have to start thinking about maybe making this like the switch now before it's too late. I know Trundolo is pretty good against Belgium, but week in, week out, Chandler is a better player. And Fabian Johnson, he doesn't play left back for his club anymore. He played left back for the German U21 team that won the European Championships in '09. But he switches back there occasionally at the end of games when the team's pushing forward. But it's still, I mean, he's worth a shot. But because he's very good with either foot. But still, you're going to have to. It's still not set that Fabian Johnson's left back, but he's a very good player. So, I mean, they'll find some room for him because he can play all over the field.
I guess what you're saying with options of moving either Chandler or Trundolo out left is you're looking at Chandler as, potentially being the future as far as our right back's concerned. Him and Eric Lehigh seem to be our big two options. So if you had to move one of the two, you'd move the older, veteran player to the left side. As you said, he doesn't make as many runs forward. He's still serviceable with his left foot, which I think is a big thing there.
Well, when you move players, you have to move it to a way that doesn't take away their biggest strength. And when you have a guy who's really an up-and-coming Bundesliga player, star player in the Bundes, I mean, he's that good, and you move him to the left, you're just you're really taking away what could be a massive positive for him. I mean, Trundolo he's just so steady and positionally solid. I know he can take some good set pieces with his right, but it's one of these things where you're not losing as much with him on the left as you are with Chandler on the left. I mean, with Chandler on the left, he's just a serviceable guy who can get back and defend and use some pace. But on the right, he's explosive and can compete with the best in the world. I don't know why. You have to always keep people to use their strengths. So I don't really understand. I wouldn't have done that. It's like, I mean, older players, when they're smart players like Steve Cherundolo, they can move around the place. I mean, like Paolo Maldini was a very, very smart player. When he couldn't play left back anymore, he moved to central defense and did well there. When he was in his late 30s, because he's a smart player. He knows where to be and he knows how to play the game. I mean, and his explosiveness on the left wasn't there anymore.
And I was going to say, and we can see that when they move Bocanegra from center back down to left back. I mean, he's not really a left back, but he's played at left back in France. He's played at left back for the United States, and he's serviceable, and he's a veteran, so he can make that move. And credit to you, actually, when we had this discussion many months ago, Brian, and I brought up the idea of Chandler playing left back. You said this guy is extremely right-footed, and I'm not sure that would work. And I think we kind of proved that last game, because those crosses that Chandler made were, well, they weren't good.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with the world-class international stage, and you're that explosive with your speed, you're still only going to get a fraction of a moment to really swing that cross in. And when you're that dominant on one foot, even if you're that speed and you put him on the left, he's still not going to, even as fast as he is, he's still not going to be able to have the chance to get the ball on his right foot or hit the ball with his left foot. I mean, he's just not that kind of a player. He can play right mid very well, and that's certainly something to consider. But he's really got to hug that right side.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work either way.
Right. Now, there are a bunch of other Americans playing in Bundesliga, too, and you brought up one earlier, Terrence Boyd.
Oh, yeah. The Bundesliga, too, is the U23 level there is red hot right now. It's very ripe with some serious talent.
Yeah. And did you get a chance to well, let's go over some of them, actually. Let's talk about Terrence Boyd. Let's talk about Jan George. And then the other kid on loan from Liverpool, William, what is it? Biev? Yeah, Biev. Okay.
William Biev, yeah. I mean, Biev is, he's exciting because he did so well in Liverpool's trial, and he's playing against dismal talent. But, he's not going to be ready to help the U.S. national team or even the Olympic team, I don't think, just because he's just a kid. I mean, he's age eligible for the 2016 Olympics, as is John Anthony Brooks and Fabian Hertzler and Cody Cropper. I mean, when you talk about age eligible and playing up a group, I mean, I know Josie and Freddie did it last cycle, but generally, it's going to be tough. So that's what DA has. He's very good instinctively, but he's not very physically mature. He can be very good, but he's 6'1", 145 pounds. So just think about that. Jeez. That's you're not going to. He's gonna have to beef up in Germany, but he's not ready there. He's a very good prospect. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking a little bit down the road. I think in terms of physical maturity. Yeah. Terrence Boyd, unbelievable. The numbers he's putting up, even though they're at the U23 level, you can't ignore. Now I know, and I've talked with several times, David Wagner, who was a former U.S. national team player in the '90s, and he's actually one of the better American coaches we have going on now. He's in charge of youth development at Borussia Dortmund, and he runs their U23 team, and he works very closely with Jurgen Klopp, who's the head coach there, the senior team. Right. He told me that he's very high on Terrence Boyd. This is before the season. Now, during the season, he's scored 7 goals in 7 games for the U23 team. I mean, if there's any injury whatsoever, and he's already begun practicing with the first team. I can report that. So, they're getting him ready. I mean, now, granted, he's, unlike a lot of other players, he's, the road in front of him is more difficult because, unlike John Anthony Brooks or John George, who are very good prospects too, Terrence Boyd has a tougher team to make. But he can. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. I mean, is it likely? And, I mean, I would favor a loan before I see him breaking in the first team. But if there's any kind of injury, or if he keeps up this pace, I mean, you just can't ignore 7 goals, 7 games for, your U23 team.
Yeah.
It's just not. And John George, though, is beginning to see first team minutes during some quasi friendlies first team friendlies that they play in the international breaks where they play 3 or 4 first team players and a couple guys who are backups. He's getting some times with those games, and he scored 2 goals in a friendly during the international break. So he could be very good. I mean, I've seen him play. I know I've talked with his agent. John George is good. I mean, it was all a question of how well he was going to come back from his ACL tear last year, and it looks like he's coming back very well. So that's a good sign. And he's best friends with Timothy Chandler, so he wants to play for the U.S. He's begging for it.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good news. Very nice. Yeah, and Brett, you actually brought up Bobby Wood. I guess he played today, but again, is Bobby Wood somebody that we look to the future for, or Is he kind of a Bundesliga 2 guy for life?
No, it's way too early to tell. I mean, he was doing really well at the end of last season, or at least before the U20 qualifiers, and then he played in the U20 qualifiers really hurt. Him and Joe Dow. I know everyone always think of that U23 team as like a failure, but a lot of the key players couldn't get released, and those key players that did show up, a lot of them were hurt, like Joe Dow and Bobby Wood. And they played in that tournament hurt, and they cost them the rest of the season last year. And Bobby Wood's still battling an injury right now, so that's the reason why he's not really playing with their youth team. He's still on the bench on their first team. And remember, 1863 is a selling club, so I think that you're going to see some of their forwards leave in the winter break, and I still think you're going to see Bobby Wood on the first. When he's good, when he's on, he's very good. I mean, I remember watching him in January with the U23 during that mega camp, and he was maybe one of the best players out there on the field.
Yeah.
He's smart. He's been there for a while, so he's had a real good foundation of European coaching. So the door's not closed on. I mean, any of these young players, not all of them are going to make it, no matter how good they are now. But Bobby Wood, he's still only 18, so the door is definitely not closed on him. No doubt about it.
What are you hearing about Hertzler? I mean, is he itching as well to play for the U.S. Down the road, or do we just not know yet?
Well, I talked to him in May for a piece, and he still wants to play for the United States. He had a very good time when he played with them in January. He liked Thomas Röntgen a lot. He it was at the same point though he didn't go because he's still a very studious person, and he had to do a lot of academic requirements, and he's still age eligible for the next U20 team. So, there's a lot, and he's still eligible for the Olympic team, and he's age eligible for like I was saying, the 2016 Olympic team. There's a lot of youth soccer in front of him. I mean, people forget just how he's 17 still. So people forget just how young he still is.
Yeah.
He'll turn 18 at the end of this month. So, I mean, he has U20 cycle and a possible Olympic cycle in front of him. I don't see Germany knocking on his door anymore. I mean, Germany's when you start playing for another team, Germany really kind of just says, okay, let's move on to the next guy. They're not really they don't operate how we operate. They kind of just move on quickly because they have such an abundance of talent.
Yeah. Big pool.
I do think Chandler might sting him for a little bit, though. That might be one that got away. I mean, I don't know if he'd be like the full-time right back, but I still think he definitely has. He would definitely be capped at the German level. I think I could see that some point down the road if he had never decided to play for the United States. It's just you don't get that kind of athleticism anywhere.
Yeah.